Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The unforgiving sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the endless stretch of sand dunes. A lone figure trudged through the arid wasteland, his heavy boots sinking into the scorching sand with each weary step. Sweat clung to his brow, and his skin felt taut under the merciless heat, but he pushed on, driven by a purpose that had outlasted even his fatigue. He was a human, one of the few to survive this far into the planet's barren reaches. His name was Leon, and he carried with him a precious resource, water. Small, carefully rationed containers were strapped to his belt, holding the life-giving liquid that had become a rarity here. In the weeks he'd spent in this hostile environment, he'd come to treasure every drop. Just as he crested a sand dune, Leon's sharp gaze caught a hint of movement below. At first, he thought it was just another mirage, a trick of the light that the desert often played on his weary mind. But as he squinted into the distance, he could see that it was no illusion. A figure lay sprawled in the sand, unmoving, as if the heat had claimed yet another life. Leon's pulse quickened as he approached cautiously. The figure became clearer, revealing a woman, a native of this desert world. Her skin was a shade of bronze that glistened under the harsh sunlight, cracked and dry from the relentless exposure. Her attire was minimal, worn and tattered, designed for survival rather than modesty. The elegance of her features and the fine structure of her limbs betrayed her origins as part of a once proud civilization now ravaged by drought and despair. He knelt beside her, reaching out to check if she was still breathing. Her chest rose and fell, shallow but steady. Relief flooded him. She was alive. Without hesitation, he unhooked one of his water containers and brought it to her parched lips. "Here," he whispered softly, tipping a few drops of water into her mouth. Her eyes fluttered open, brilliant and fierce even in her weakened state. She drank greedily, her lips moving to capture every precious drop. When she realized he had more, she pulled back slightly, her gaze narrowing with suspicion mixed with desperation. "You have water," she rasped, her voice hoarse and barely a whisper. Leon nodded, sensing the desperation in her tone. "Enough to get by," he replied, though he knew it wasn't quite true. Water was scarce, and every drop mattered, but leaving her here, knowing he could help, didn't sit right with him. "Please," she said, her voice breaking as her pride gave way to the primal need for survival. "I'll do anything for more." Her words hung heavily in the air, loaded with a meaning that was raw and vulnerable. Leon held her gaze, sensing the depth of her desperation. He didn't want to exploit her suffering, yet he understood the power this water held in such a land. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly, offering her another sip. "Let's get you back on your feet first." She took the water, her hands shaking as she drank, still watching him warily. Moments passed as she regained her strength, each drop seemingly returning life to her body. As she pushed herself to a seated position, she regarded him with a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "My name is Celine," she said, finally breaking the silence. "And I don't understand why you would do this. Most would have taken advantage of my need." Leon simply shrugged. "Sometimes helping someone is reason enough." Celine's eyes softened, the harshness of her world momentarily overshadowed by something fragile and unfamiliar. She met his gaze, an unspoken promise forming between them, a bond forged in the desolate sands of survival. The desert's grip tightened as night began to fall, casting long shadows over the dunes and cooling the intense heat of the day. Leon and Celine had found a small rocky outcropping that offered minimal shelter from the harsh environment, a place to rest and regain some strength before dawn would force them to march again. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind as it whipped across the sand. Celine had finished the last drops of water Leon had given her, and already her body seemed to recover slightly, her skin gaining a faint glow as it absorbed the much-needed hydration. But even in the low light, he could see the hunger and weariness that clung to her. "Is your world all like this?" Leon finally asked, breaking the silence. Celine's gaze drifted over the horizon, a faraway look in her eyes. No. Once we had rivers, lakes, forests, enough water to feed our lands and fill the sky with green. But that was before the Great Drought. The Great Drought. Leon leaned forward, his interest piqued. A curse on my people. We overextended ourselves, taking more than our world could give. And it fought back. Her voice was tinged with bitterness and sorrow, and she looked away, as though ashamed. Those of us who remain are the survivors, living on whatever scraps we can find. Water is our life, our currency, our power. Leon nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. On Earth, water was readily available. He had grown up taking it for granted. But here, it was something sacred, a treasure that could mean the difference between life and death. He handed her another small container, and she accepted it, hesitating just a moment before drinking, as if still marveling at his generosity. You must think we're savages, she said quietly, lowering the container, to offer anything for something as simple as water. But you don't understand what it means to us. Leon shook his head. I don't think that at all. It's just different from my world. On Earth, water is plentiful almost everywhere. Celine's eyes widened with awe. Everywhere. Your lands must be paradise, she murmured. I can't imagine what it must be like to see water flowing freely, to not worry about every drop. He smiled gently. Maybe one day, you'll see it for yourself. The words hung between them, a fragile promise in the vastness of the desert. She looked at him, surprised, as if he had offered her something far greater than the water in his canister. But her expression quickly turned, her eyes growing wary, guarded once more. Why would you do this? She asked, her tone sharpened by suspicion. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Leon shrugged, offering her a gentle smile. Sometimes, it's enough just to help. I don't expect anything in return. Celine's gaze softened, her guard lowering just slightly. If I had met you in another life, on a different world, I might have thought you were lying. But here, everything you've done, it doesn't make sense. She paused, the conflict in her eyes apparent. Are all humans like you? He laughed, the sound echoing in the still night air. No, not all of us. He hesitated, glancing down at the sand. But some of us are willing to give a little more than we take. We know how to survive, even when things get rough. Survive, she whispered, repeating the word as if it held new meaning. I suppose that's all we know how to do, too. She looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. But none of my people would have given up water so easily. They sat in silence again, the connection between them growing with each moment, a strange blend of curiosity and shared resilience. Leon realized he didn't just see her as someone he could help. She was a kindred spirit, someone who had known loss and suffering, just like him. As the chill of the desert night settled in, Celine shivered, hugging her arms close to her body. Without thinking, Leon shifted closer, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. She looked at him, surprise flickering across her face, but she didn't pull away. Thank you, she murmured, her voice barely audible over the whisper of the wind. Leon felt the warmth of her body against his, and for a brief moment, he allowed himself to hope. In this desolate world, he had found something rare, someone who understood, someone who might just be the anchor he needed. As the stars above began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Leon and Celine sat close, two souls bound by an unexpected connection. In the quiet of the night, the harshness of the world around them faded away, leaving only the soft promise of companionship and the chance for something more. The night was colder than Leon had anticipated. The desert's heat vanished with the setting sun, leaving the air crisp and biting. He could feel Celine shiver beneath his jacket, her form fragile yet resilient, like a delicate flower surviving against all odds in barren soil. They sat close, taking comfort in each other's warmth, their breaths mingling in the quiet of the night. Tell me about Earth, Celine whispered, her voice soft and tentative, as if afraid to disturb the silence between them. Is it as beautiful as the stories say? Leon looked up at the stars, their faint light casting a silvery glow over the dunes. "Earth is complex," he replied. "There are mountains that touch the sky, forests so dense you can get lost in them, oceans that stretch out farther than the eye can see. It's a place where life thrives, where there's always something green, something growing." Her eyes shone with a childlike wonder as she listened, hanging on to every word. "It sounds like a dream." "It is," Leon admitted, a pang of homesickness in his voice. "But it's not perfect. We have our own struggles, conflicts, scarcity in some places, and people who take more than they give." Celine nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Like my people," she murmured. "We were once prosperous, thriving in our cities built along rivers and lakes. But we became greedy, taking more than the land could bear. The drought was a punishment, a reminder that even the strongest civilizations can fall." Leon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We all make mistakes, but we can learn from them too." A silence fell between them, both lost in their thoughts. Leon could see the pain in her eyes, the burden of guilt and loss she carried. And yet, there was a resilience about her, a strength that had kept her going, even when hope seemed all but lost. "I had a family once," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "My father was a leader among our people, a wise man who believed in harmony with the land. But when the drought came, people turned on him. They blamed him for not preparing, for believing too much in our old ways. They took him from me." Leon's heart clenched as he listened. "I am sorry, Celine." She gave a sad smile, her gaze distant. "I was just a child then. I ran, survived as best I could. But in a world like this, survival has a cost. You lose pieces of yourself, little by little, until you're nothing but a shadow of who you were." He squeezed her shoulder gently, offering her silent comfort. "You're not just a shadow," he said softly. "You're stronger than you realize. You've survived, even in this world." Her eyes met his, filled with gratitude and something deeper, an emotion she seemed almost afraid to acknowledge. "You're different from anyone I've ever known," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You see people for more than what they can offer. It's strange." Leon laughed lightly, the sound warm against the cool desert night. "Maybe that's what makes us human. We see value in things that others might overlook." She gazed at him, her expression softening. In that moment, he could see the vulnerability in her, the walls she had built around herself beginning to crumble. It was a fragile bond, but it was real, born of shared hardships and the quiet understanding of two people who had both known loss. As the wind picked up, Leon drew her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, her head resting against his chest, her breathing slow and steady. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace, a calm that settled over him like a gentle wave. "I never thought I'd find someone like you here," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "It feels safe, like I can trust you." "You can," he replied, his words a quiet promise. "I won't leave you behind, Celine. We'll face whatever comes next together." They stayed like that, huddled together in the darkness, as the stars watched over them in silent witness. The harshness of the world around them faded away, leaving only the warmth of their connection, a light in the vast, desolate landscape that was their world. As dawn approached, Leon knew that the journey ahead would be difficult, but with Celine by his side, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. In a land where survival was often the only goal, he had found something more, a bond worth fighting for, a reason to keep moving forward. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a soft glow on the desert sands. Leon and Celine stirred from their rest, their shared warmth fading as the cool night gave way to the inevitable heat of the day. Leon's water supply was dwindling. Each sip they shared brought them closer to needing a new source, and the reality of their situation settled heavily on them both. "We should keep moving," Leon said, breaking the silence. "If we can find some shade or another source of water, we'll have a better chance of surviving the next few days." Celine nodded, determination etched on her face. She had already shown remarkable resilience. but he could see the toll that the desert had taken on her. Yet she carried herself with dignity, a reminder of the strength that lay within her. She adjusted his jacket around her shoulders, and they began their trek across the dunes, each step accompanied by the sinking feeling of sand beneath their feet. The sun rose quickly, bringing with it an intense heat that sapped their energy. As they walked, Celine told him more about her world, the lost cities, the beautiful landscapes that had long since turned to dust, the people who had once lived with hope. Her stories painted a vivid picture, giving Leon glimpses of a world that had been, a world that still lingered in her heart. They had been walking for hours when Celine suddenly paused, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Leon followed her line of sight and saw what looked like a dark shape in the distance, partially buried beneath the sand. "A shelter?" he asked, his voice tinged with hope. Celine's eyes narrowed as she studied the shape. "Possibly. There were many structures built before the drought, some abandoned when the water ran dry. If it's still intact, we might find something useful." With renewed energy, they made their way toward the structure. As they got closer, Leon realized it was the remnants of a small building, half buried but still standing against the elements. The walls were cracked, and parts of the roof had caved in, but it offered shade, a reprieve from the merciless sun. They stepped inside, grateful for the coolness the shade provided. Leon scanned the small space, noticing remnants of what might have once been a storage area. Empty containers, broken machinery, and scraps of metal littered the ground. Yet in the corner, something glinted, a small, forgotten canister. Leon approached it cautiously, hoping against hope that it held water. He lifted the canister, feeling its weight, and twisted the cap open. A few drops trickled out, the faint glimmer of liquid inside teasing him with the promise of relief. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them going. Celine's face lit up with a rare smile as she watched him. "You truly are a miracle worker," she said softly. He smiled back, handing her the canister. "Ladies first." She took a tentative sip, savoring the taste of water on her lips. She handed it back to him, and he drank, each drop feeling like a blessing. In the quiet of the shelter, surrounded by the ruins of a once thriving civilization, their bond grew stronger. They had found a small victory in the midst of a harsh world, and it filled them with a shared sense of purpose. As they sat in the shade, Celine turned to him, her expression serious. "I owe you more than just my life, Leon. You've given me hope, a gift I thought was lost to me." He looked at her, his gaze steady. "You don't owe me anything, Celine. We're in this together." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand. The touch was light, almost hesitant, but it held a warmth that seemed to melt the barriers between them. He wrapped his hand around hers, feeling the fragility and strength in her grip. In that moment, they were no longer just two strangers bound by survival. They were partners, allies, and something more. Two souls drawn together in a place where hope was rare. But their reprieve was short-lived. A sudden rumble echoed through the structure, and the ground beneath them trembled. Leon's instincts kicked in as he pulled Celine to her feet. "We need to get out of here. Now." They bolted toward the entrance, just as a part of the roof collapsed, sending debris and dust into the air. They stumbled out into the open, coughing and shielding their faces from the sand and rubble. As they moved away from the crumbling shelter, Leon glanced back, realizing how close they had come to being buried alive. Breathless, they stood together, taking in the sight of the destroyed shelter. Their narrow escape left them shaken, but grateful to be alive. Leon felt Celine's hand slip into his, her grip steady despite the tremor in her voice. "We're not safe here," she whispered. "This desert, it takes everything." He tightened his hold on her, a silent reassurance that they were still together, still fighting. "Then we keep moving," he said, determination lacing his words. "As long as we're together, we'll find a way." They set off once more, their steps in sync, their resolve unbroken. The journey was long, and the desert unforgiving, but their bond had become a source of strength, a fragile yet unyielding force against the harshness of the world around them. The relentless sun was nearing its peak when Leon and Celine stopped to rest under a rare patch of shade cast by a lone rock formation. The desert stretched endlessly around them, but the silence between them was no longer empty. Their shared glances and soft exchanges had woven a quiet understanding, a comfort that went beyond words. They drank sparingly from the little water they had left, each sip more precious than the last. Leon could feel the toll the journey had taken on Celine. Her shoulders were slumped, and a weariness shadowed her eyes. Yet there was a spark in her gaze whenever it met his, a spark of determination that kept them both moving forward. "Leon," Celine began, breaking the silence, "if you had to choose, if it came down to survival, would you still share your water with me?" He looked at her, the question catching him off guard. Her voice held no accusation, just a simple curiosity tinged with vulnerability. He thought about it, about the scarcity they faced and the uncertainty of the desert. "Yes," he replied finally, his tone steady. "I would, because out here, it's more than just survival. We're in this together." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, she seemed almost overwhelmed. "No one has ever cared like that," she murmured, almost to herself. "In my world, kindness comes at a cost. No one gives without expecting something in return. That's the thing about humans," he said with a gentle smile. "Sometimes we give because we want to, not because we have to." Celine looked at him as if seeing him anew, her eyes tracing the lines of his face, the wear and resilience in his expression. In that moment, the desert around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them, bound by a promise and a growing warmth that defied the desolate world. Without thinking, she reached out, her hand finding his. Their fingers entwined, and she moved closer, her gaze flickering with something deep and unspoken. She leaned her head against his shoulder, her body settling into the curve of his arm. Leon's heartbeat quickened as he wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. The intensity of their connection pulsed between them, a fragile yet unbreakable bond. They stayed that way for a long moment, each of them drawing strength from the other's presence. The warmth of her skin against his, the rise and fall of her breath. It was a feeling that transcended words, a connection forged in survival and shared trust. "Leon," she whispered, looking up at him, her voice barely audible over the faint whisper of the wind. He tilted his head down, his gaze meeting hers. Her eyes held a vulnerability that was both heartbreaking and beautiful. In that moment, the distance between them vanished, and he could feel the depth of her emotions as though they were his own. Slowly, as if moved by a force beyond them, their faces drew closer, their breaths mingling. He could feel the warmth of her lips, soft and inviting, as they brushed against his. Their kiss was gentle at first, a tentative exploration, but it quickly deepened, carrying with it a passion that had been building with each shared moment, each small act of kindness. In the vast emptiness of the desert, they found a refuge in each other, a sanctuary from the harshness of their surroundings. Their connection grew, unfurling like a fragile bloom in the desert sand, a testament to the power of trust and companionship in even the bleakest of places. As they finally pulled apart, their foreheads resting together, Celine smiled, a glimmer of hope and happiness shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with a gratitude that went beyond words. "For everything." He held her close, feeling the weight of her emotions and the strength of the bond they had forged. "We'll get through this together," he promised, his voice low but resolute. "No matter what." The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the sands as they sat together, their hearts beating in sync. They both knew that the journey ahead would be hard, that the desert would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But in each other's arms, they had found a reason to keep going, a reason to believe that even in a world as desolate as this, there could still be hope. The sun dipped lower, casting the desert in a warm, golden glow as Leon and Celine walked side by side. The heat was fading, but exhaustion weighed heavily on them both. Their water supply had dwindled to a few precious sips, each one more valuable than the last. Celine stumbled, her legs shaking from fatigue. Leon quickly steadied her, his arms slipping around her waist. She leaned into him, her breath shallow and labored, but her spirit remained unbroken. "We're close," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "There was an oasis. My people used to visit it during times of drought. It may still be there." Leon glanced at her, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "An oasis? With water?" She nodded, though there was uncertainty in her gaze. "If it hasn't dried up like everything else, but it's worth a try." They pressed on, their pace slower, but fueled by the faint promise of relief. As they walked, Leon noticed the tension in Celine's expression, the way her eyes darted across the horizon as if expecting something to appear. "What is it?" he asked, sensing her unease. She hesitated before answering, her voice soft. "In times of drought, people turn desperate. Some even become predators, taking what they need by force. If we find water, others might have found it too." Leon's grip on her tightened protectively. "We'll be careful. We'll get through this together." As the sky began to darken, they finally caught sight of the oasis. It was a small, hidden grove nestled between towering dunes, a cluster of withered trees casting shadows over a shallow pool. The sight of water brought a surge of relief, and they rushed forward, their steps quickened by desperation. The pool was small, its surface reflecting the fading light of dusk. Leon knelt beside it, dipping his hand into the cool liquid. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He filled their canisters, handing one to Celine, and they both drank deeply, the water bringing life back to their weary bodies. For a moment, they simply sat beside the pool, savoring the precious water and the relief it brought. The silence was peaceful, a rare reprieve in a world that had given them little but hardship. But the peace didn't last. A rustling in the shadows broke the stillness, and Leon turned, his instincts sharpening. Emerging from the darkness were three figures, their bodies wrapped in tattered cloaks, their eyes glinting with hunger and desperation. They carried crude weapons, sharpened metal and rusted blades, their postures tense and ready. Celine's hand tightened around Leon's arm as the strangers approached. He could feel her fear, but he kept his gaze steady, his body tense and prepared to protect her. One of the men stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "That water belongs to us. Hand it over, and we won't have to hurt you." Leon stood, his stance protective as he moved in front of Celine. "We're not looking for trouble," he said calmly. "There's enough here for everyone." The man sneered, his grip tightening on his weapon. "There's never enough. Not out here." The air grew thick with tension, the quiet of the oasis shattered by the threat that hung between them. Leon's mind raced, his eyes darting to the surroundings, searching for any advantage. He knew they were outnumbered, but he wouldn't, let them take what they had fought so hard to find. The men advanced, and Leon felt Celine's hand slip into his, her grip firm despite the fear in her eyes. In that moment, he knew he wouldn't let anything happen to her, no matter the cost. The first attacker lunged, his blade aimed at Leon. Moving swiftly, Leon dodged to the side, gripping a piece of sturdy wood he'd found by the pool's edge. He swung, catching the man in the side and sending him stumbling back. But the others were on him in an instant, forcing him into a struggle that was both fierce and unrelenting. Celine, though weakened, refused to remain idle. She grabbed a rock and threw it at one of the attackers, catching him off guard. Her eyes blazed with determination, her spirit unyielding even in the face of danger. Together, they fought with a desperation born of survival, their bond giving them the strength to stand against the odds. Blow after blow, they defended each other, refusing to let the attackers take what they had found. At last, the men retreated, their pride and bodies bruised. They cast one last look of contempt before vanishing into the desert, their silhouettes fading into the darkening horizon. Breathless and bruised, Leon and Celine collapsed beside the pool, their bodies trembling from the adrenaline. In the silence that followed, they looked at each other, a mixture of relief and exhaustion in their eyes. You didn't have to fight for me," Celine whispered, her voice soft and wavering. Leon reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Yes, I did. I made a promise, remember? She looked away, her cheeks flushed, but her hand found his, squeezing it with a gratitude that went beyond words. In that moment, they were more than just two strangers bound by survival. They were partners, bound by trust, by loyalty, and something deeper that neither of them dared to name. As the stars began to fill the night sky, they sat together by the pool, the bond between them stronger than ever. They had faced the desert's cruelty and come out together, each of them a lifeline for the other in a world that had tried to break them. For the first time since their journey began, Leon felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to survive in this unforgiving world. And as he held Celine's hand in the darkness, he knew he had found something worth fighting for. The night settled around them in a gentle embrace, the oasis providing a rare sanctuary amidst the endless desert. Leon and Celine sat close by the pool, their reflections rippling across its surface. The weight of their recent struggle still hung in the air, but in its place, a new understanding had taken root, deeper and more profound. They had shared their water, fought to protect each other, and faced dangers side by side. Their bond was no longer just about survival. It had become something vital, something that made the harsh desert seem a little less desolate. Leon glanced over at Celine, who was staring thoughtfully at the water. She looked more at peace than he'd seen her before, her features softened by the moonlight. He could sense a shift within her, as if she had shed some of the burdens she had carried for so long. "Do you miss your people?" he asked, breaking the silence, his voice gentle. Celine looked up, surprised by the question. She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the stars. "Yes and no," she admitted softly. "I miss the world we used to have, the people we used to be. But I've been alone for so long. My people, those who are left, became strangers, focused only on surviving, no matter the cost." She paused, her voice barely a whisper. "Until you came along, I thought I'd forgotten what it felt like to trust someone." Leon felt a pang of sympathy. He couldn't imagine the isolation she must have endured, the constant struggle to stay alive in a world that had turned hostile. Reaching out, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle but grounding. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said quietly. "Whatever we face out here, we'll face it together." Celine looked at him, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability. Slowly, she reached up, her fingers brushing against his hand, and for a moment, they simply stayed like that, connected in a way that transcended words. "Leon," she whispered, her voice wavering, "I don't know what I would have done without you." He smiled, his gaze warm and unwavering. "I think we were meant to find each other, Celine. In this vast, empty world, maybe that's enough." A gentle silence fell between them, the stars above casting a soft glow over the oasis. Without realizing it, they had moved closer, the distance between them narrowing, until she was resting her head on his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his chest. Their closeness was no longer just about comfort. It was a shared strength, a quiet resilience that bound them together in ways they couldn't explain. It was as if they had found a small haven in each other, a place where they could let their guards down, if only for a little while. Celine looked up at him, her gaze filled with a quiet intensity. "Do you think there's a chance for us?" she asked softly. "For something more than just surviving?" Leon's fingers brushed against her cheek, his touch light, but filled with a tenderness that spoke volumes. "I think there's always a chance, Celine. As long as we keep moving forward, as long as we don't give up on each other." In that moment, she leaned in, her lips brushing softly against his. The kiss was gentle, a slow and lingering connection that carried with it all the unspoken words and emotions they hadn't dared to voice. It was a promise, a quiet affirmation of the bond they had built together. When they finally pulled back, they stayed close, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling in the cool desert air. For the first time in a long while, Leon felt a sense of peace, a calm that settled deep within him, fueled by the trust and understanding that had grown between them. "Thank you," Celine murmured, her voice barely audible, "for reminding me that there's still something worth holding on to." Leon held her tightly, his heart full. "We'll find a way, Celine. Together." The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversations and shared dreams. They spoke of the lives they had left behind, the people they had once been, and the future they now dared to imagine. Their bond, fragile yet unbreakable, was a light in the darkness, a reminder that even in the most desolate places, hope could still flourish. As dawn approached, they sat together, watching the first rays of sunlight break over the horizon. The desert stretched before them, vast and unyielding, but their hearts were lighter, filled with a newfound determination. They had each other, and in a world that had given them nothing, they had found everything. The sun was climbing higher as Leon and Celine left the oasis behind, their spirits lifted by the fresh water they'd collected and the renewed hope they now carried. Each step they took felt lighter, their burdens eased by the bond that had blossomed between them in the quiet hours of the night. As they moved further into the desert, the landscape around them began to change. The endless dunes gave way to strange, jagged rock formations, their shadows stretching across the sand like dark fingers. The air grew still, and an eerie silence hung over the terrain. Celine paused, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the rocky landscape. "We're entering what used to be one of the sacred grounds," she said quietly. "Before the drought, my people would come here to commune with the land and the spirits of our ancestors." Leon looked around, taking in the haunting beauty of the area. The rocks towered above them, twisted into strange shapes that seemed to defy logic. "It's incredible," he murmured, awed by the surreal landscape, "like something out of a dream." She gave a sad smile, her gaze distant. It was once a place of life and energy. Now, it's little more than a graveyard of memories. They continued through the rocky terrain, careful with each step. Despite the desolation, there was something almost sacred about the area, a quiet reverence that lingered in the air. Leon could feel it too, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that made him tread carefully. As they walked, Celine's gaze caught on something partially buried in the sand near the base of a large rock. She knelt down, brushing away the sand to reveal a metal object, weathered and worn by time. "What is it?" Leon asked, crouching beside her. "It's an artifact," she replied, her voice laced with awe. "A relic from my people's past. It must have been left here during one of the sacred gatherings." She turned the object over in her hands, her expression contemplative. "Our ancestors believed that these artifacts held the wisdom of those who came before us. They would meditate with them, seeking guidance and strength." Leon watched her, captivated by the reverence in her voice. This relic was more than just an object to her. It was a piece of her heritage, a connection to the past she had lost. He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her in the present, reminding her that she wasn't alone. "Maybe it's a sign," he said gently, "a reminder of where you came from and the strength that's still within you." She looked up at him, her eyes bright with gratitude. "You always know what to say," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "You make me believe that there's still something worth fighting for." He smiled, the warmth in his gaze reassuring. "There is, and we'll keep going until we find it." As they continued through the rocky landscape, they found more remnants, scraps of cloth, broken pottery, fragments of carvings that told stories of a world that had once thrived. Each discovery brought them closer, the shared experience deepening their bond and filling them with a quiet sense of purpose. Hours passed, and the heat of the day began to weigh on them. They took shelter beneath a large rock, the shade providing a brief respite from the relentless sun. Leon handed Celine a small ration of water, their supply carefully preserved. As they drank, Celine spoke, her voice quiet and reflective. "I never thought I would find peace in a place like this, but with you it feels different, like we're walking towards something together." Leon's heart swelled at her words. He reached for her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "No matter where this journey takes us, I'll be here with you. We're not alone anymore." She smiled, a warmth in her gaze that chased away the lingering shadows of her past. "You've given me hope, Leon, and that's something I thought was lost forever." They sat in silence, their hands entwined, as the desert stretched before them. Their journey was far from over, but they had found a strength in each other that could withstand even the harshest of trials. As the day wore on, they rose and continued their trek, the strange, jagged rocks giving way to open desert once more. The challenges they had faced together had transformed their journey into something greater than survival, a quest for purpose, for connection, for a future they had once thought impossible. With each step, they moved forward, their resolve unbroken, their spirits united. And in the vast, unforgiving desert, they had found something that no drought, no hardship could ever take away, a bond forged in resilience, in hope, and in the quiet strength of love. As night fell, they stopped to rest, the desert cool beneath the stars. Leon held Celine close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. In the quiet, he whispered a silent vow, a promise that he would see her to safety, no matter the cost. And as they lay together beneath the vast sky, their breaths mingling, their bodies weary yet unyielding, they found solace in each other, a quiet strength that carried them through the darkest night. Next day, Leon and Celine awoke to the first light of dawn, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. The last sips of strained water had kept them going through the night, and now, with their energy fading, they felt the urgency to keep moving. The desert stretched before them, vast and empty, yet in the distance, a faint glimmer caught Leon's eye. "Do you see that?" he asked, his voice hushed with hope. Celine squinted, shielding her eyes from the morning sun. "Yes, it looks like another oasis." They shared a silent look, both knowing this might be their last chance. With renewed determination, they set off toward the distant shimmer, their steps quickened by the promise of relief. As they approached, Leon's heart lifted. The oasis was real, and it was larger than the one before. A clear pool lay at its center, surrounded by a small patch of greenery that seemed almost miraculous in the barren landscape. They rushed forward, collapsing at the edge of the water, and drank deeply, the cool liquid soothing their parched throats and restoring their strength. When they had drunk their fill, they sat by the water's edge, silent but grateful. The oasis felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could finally rest without fear or desperation. Leon reached for Celine's hand, his fingers interlacing with hers, and they sat together, content in the quiet peace of the moment. Celine looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and affection. "You saved me, Leon. I wouldn't have made it without you." He shook his head with a soft smile on his lips and took a gentle kiss on Celine's forehead. "We saved each other, Celine. Together, we found a way." They stayed by the water, talking about the future, daring to imagine a life beyond the desert. With the oasis as their haven, they had a chance to rebuild, to live in a world that they would shape together. And as they sat in the soft glow of the morning sun, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Their journey had been one of survival, but it had become something more, a story of hope, resilience, and the power of a bond forged in the harshest